A few passengers passing through Kapoho Kai Drive stumbled upon an abandoned crash site. There were tire tracks etched into the earth, a lone white tennis shoe, a badly damaged black bicycle, and scattered clumps of blonde hair. They immediately informed the police and started searching the nearby grounds for the missing rider. However, there was no luck. Simultaneously, law enforcement received a distressing call reporting a woman, battered and barely clinging to life, lying amidst the dense bushes along a remote fishing trail in Va'ava'a. The woman the authorities found was Dana Ireland, a 23-year-old girl who left her parents' home in Punua for a bike ride and never returned. Who hit her bike? Was it a mere accident or a sinister act of intent? What were the spine-tingling details discovered on her body? A horrendous bike accident that left every woman in its state feeling unsafe. Watch this video to find out more about the disturbing details about the death of Dana Ireland. Dana was a 23-year-old girl who was full of life and passion, an enthusiastic biker and cyclist. She was visiting the Big Island from her home state of Virginia and had cycled 8 miles from her parents' rental home in Kapoho Vacation Land to a friend's house. Following the phone call from the passengers about the accident, the authorities reached the crime scene to witness a gruesome sight. Lying in the bushes, waist down naked, was Dana. The officials were convinced that she had fallen victim to a horrifying sexual assault. Being almost an hour late, the department's irresponsibility cost them more than they could imagine. Her parents received the heart-wrenching call detailing their daughter's accident. They hurried to Hilo Hospital where she had been transported. In the early hours of December 25, 1991, at 12:07 a.m., Dana tragically departed from our world due to massive blood loss. A Christmas stained with blood and agonizing pain that the world will never forget. However, the authorities had no evidence to find out the murderer, who brutally raped and killed Dana. He remained undetected and free, facing no consequences of his actions. The authorities gave up, but Dana's family did not. In the years following the murder, they publicly and politically put pressure on authorities to get the case solved. There was only one clue that could have gotten them to the suspect. DNA samples were retrieved from the crime scene. However, even with this evidence, the possible suspect for this case still remained null. But in the spring of 1994, a phone call completely changed the trajectory of the Dana Ireland murder case. The investigation, which was closed off, was reopened when John Gonsalves claimed he knew who killed Dana. However, Gonsalves was not innocent himself. Entangled in a significant cocaine conspiracy, he made a deal with the authorities to be set free on probation in exchange for this information. The police accepted this deal. He informed that his half-brother Frank Pauly knew the name of the killers. Now, who was he and what role did he play in this gripping tale of twists and turns? Pauline was already in prison at the time, serving 10 years for an unrelated sex assault and theft. He gave 2 names, 2 brothers, Albert Ian and Sean Schweitzer. Now, why would the police believe a criminal? Pauline asserted that he was a witness to the Schweitzers' attack on Ireland, describing a horrifying sequence of events. According to his account given to the police, they had run over Dana Ireland, placed her in a trunk, and transported her to another location. There, the brothers allegedly subjected her to sexual assault. However, what unfolded next was beyond anyone's expectations, plunging Dana's family into a bewildering state of confusion. In July 1996, Pauline renounced his story. He admitted that he lied solely to protect his brother and get him out on probation. Gonsalves promised that the gravest consequence he might face would be a charge of perjury. However, the entire situation backfired and Pauline was charged with rape, kidnapping, and murder on July 30th, 1997. Later that same year, the Schweitzer brothers were charged too. Meanwhile, Gonsalves got his charges dropped and went ahead to testify against his brother in court. He claimed that Pauline was lying and stood by his initial statements. Indeed, what a dramatic and unexpected twist of events. But wait, just when you thought it couldn't get more puzzling, the DNA test results added another layer of confusion to the story. Just before getting into those details, let's see what evidence the police had from the crime site. DNA samples were gathered from semen remains found at both the crime scene and on the victim's body. Tire marks from both the crime scenes were examined as well. They were matched to a Volkswagen Beetle ridden by Ian. Additionally, a Jimmy Z t-shirt stained with Dana's blood and a bite mark on her breast were crucial pieces of evidence in the case. So, coming back to the puzzling twist. The DNA of the three accused were tested against the one received from the evidence. To the shock of the police, none of their DNA matched, nor did the dental mark on her chest. The police also found no traces of Ireland's blood or hair in Albert Ian Schweitzer's Volkswagen Beetle, a car he didn't own until a month after Ireland was murdered. Hence, the charges were dismissed without prejudice on October 20th, 1998. Dana's family started losing hope, but within a year, the case spiraled into further confusion. On May 5th, 1999, an inmate, Michael Ortiz, came forward and claimed that Schweitzer confessed the murder to him, and just 2 weeks later, Pauline and the Schweitzers were indicted, again on May 20th, 1999. Considering the impact of one confession, why should they place their trust in another inmate now? Were the police deliberately attempting to pin the case on them? Throughout Pauline's trial, there were no DNA matches found, and even witnesses couldn't identify him in the courtroom. However, the prosecution persisted in claiming that the Jimmy Z shirt found belonged to Pauline and continued to argue his guilt. Albert Ian's trial followed, during which he declined a 20-year probation offer and pleaded not guilty. Despite the witness describing a truck, the prosecution insisted that Schweitzer's VW Beetle was the vehicle that struck Ireland. Even with all the flaws in the prosecution's case, Ian was ultimately convicted. During Sean Schweitzer's trial, as part of his deal, he was required to accuse Ian and Pauline of Dana Ireland's murder and undergo a lie detector test to validate the honesty of his confession. Despite Sean's reluctance, Ian urged him to go home and take care of the family. Stay tuned for the next astonishing twist in the story. On March 24, 2000, Sean underwent a lie detector test, which indicated that he was being untruthful about his involvement in the case. That could have disqualified him from pleading guilty, but oddly, it didn't. The police found Ian guilty despite the lie detection test telling a different story. According to court transcripts, the police reported that Schweitzer did pass the polygraph finding and he was not deceptive to any of the questions. But in reality, the opposite was what happened. This brings us back to our question. Were the police potentially aiding someone in covering their tracks? Or were they driven to resolve the case due to pressure from higher authorities? Sean Schweitzer was sentenced to 5 years probation with credit for time served. Jerry Schweitzer, their father, remembers, "The girl's dad, I don't think he really believed that this was a fair trial because after the trial, he told me he was sorry." Years passed by. In 2005, Ian Schweitzer sought a case review through the Innocence Project, and by 2010, the review gained momentum. On January 23, 2023, a motion was filed to overturn his conviction due to new evidence. Let's listen to the statements given by his legal team.
In total, there are 7 samples of DNA, 7 samples that were tested for DNA, and unknown male number 1's DNA is found on all of them. Ian, Sean, and Frank are all excluded.
New DNA received from the shirt covered in blood matched to the unknown male, the only male contributor of all the DNA evidence at the scene and on Ireland's body. An expert in tire tread evidence testified remotely that Schweitzer's Beetle could not have realistically made the impressions left behind at both crime scenes. Rather, it was a larger vehicle, a truck or SUV. The last witness, dentist Adam Freeman, stated that the injury on her left breast wasn't even a bite mark.
Kidnapping and sexual assault in the first degree is hereby vacated, and Mr. Schweitzer shall be released immediately from custody in this courtroom.
But the judge's following words were perhaps the most reassuring anyone could hope for.
You can live it being angry and resentful at the process or the people that put you there, or you can live it with a new freedom. All right, I suggest that since you have your whole family here, you hug and love your family and live a fulfilled life.
Ian is now a free and happy man. He continued to embrace his legal team, his parents, his brother, and his own son. Schweitzer could be eligible for compensation for his wrongful imprisonment.
$10,000 for every year that you're in prison, and then there's another $100,000 if for extraordinary circumstances, and then you can get attorney's fees for the actual filing of the case to file your claim of up to $10,000.
In Albert Ian Schweitzer's case, that adds up to $1.15 million. As far as that extra $100,000 for extraordinary circumstances, that would be up to the court to decide.
Schweitzer said he considers himself a victim. "I feel like they murdered 25 years of my life. I feel like they kidnapped me away from my family." This story is not just about Dana, but the struggles of an innocent man too. Ireland's parents have died. Her sister lives on the East Coast, but could not be reached for comment. Pauline died in prison in 2015 after an inmate stabbed him. The killer of Dana is still on the loose after 32 years. Was Pauline's murder a plan to save the actual culprits? Can we trust the police? Comment down your thoughts below and follow for more such content.